are back. It is a miserably hot day here in Southern California, and we've got Simon and Jason. And guys, we had the first episode of True Detective last week, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the first episode.
Shut up.
I'm only kidding. Strange weekend of boxing. We had some pretty strange refereeing or officiating, maybe you want to call it. And we're going to go over those four instances. But let's preface that by saying, look, referees got a hard job. Nobody really wants to do their job. I mean, if you think about it, they're asked to make definitive decisions that affect outcomes of fights sometimes. And they have, milliseconds to make that decision?
Yeah, They have to balance the entertainment of the fan with the safety of the boxer. Like, there's a lot to worry about.
And then not only that, so you have the safety factor, but now you also have the rules factor. So literally all of it's happening within the amount of time it takes a synapse to fire in your brain. Like,
exactly.
They don't have time to think about their decision. And I think when you're being critical of a ref, sometimes it's appropriate. Like Lawrence Cole has done some really egregious things. But other times, I think you really just got to cut the refs some slack, man. And we all go to work. We all have bad days in the office sometimes. And sometimes you're just not on your game. Or sometimes you make a decision that is just not what people would like for whatever reason. But I don't know. I think it's very easy for fans to be overly critical of a ref job and not really consider all that it entails.
Right. So we had Rocky Fielding versus Brian Vera in Liverpool, where Ian John Lewis failed to jump in after Vera slipped to the canvas, and as Vera was getting up, he got hit after being down. It's really clear that Vera was down and proceeded to be knocked out by Rocky Fielding. We saw Pat Russell stop the fight with 7 seconds left to go as Jesse Vargas has Timothy Bradley on the ropes, hurt. We saw Luis Pabon not really know how to handle the end of the Magdaleno-Jose Gonzalez fight, Diego Magdaleno I'm talking about. After Magdaleno hit Gonzalez with a body shot that looked illegal in real time, but was a pretty legit shot. And then we had the I'm Not Ruenroeng versus Ruenroeng-Casimero title fight, which was, I don't know who that ref was. It was an anonymous referee who decided that the rules could not be upheld in that fight and decided that he was just going to let it go however it went, and point taking would be something that would be only in extreme circumstances. And judging by how that fight started, extreme was really extreme.
I think he witnessed how it started and thought, you know what, let's let God be the referee here.
Yeah, the moment that fight started, he immediately accepted that he had lost all control.
He knew what time it was.
He said, let go and let God, and we'll just go from there.
I mean, if you didn't see that fight, you missed a good fight. Now, a lot of people are gonna slam anonymous referee in the fight and say that he had no control over these fighters. But if you watch this fight, you'll realize very quickly that this fight could not have been controlled. Ruenroeng and Casimero did their best to just make this the ugliest, grittiest fight you'll see. And I'm not talking the Hopkins, Andre Ward type of ugly or gritty. I'm talking like takedowns, hitting behind the head, blatant low blows, knee shots.
Yeah, there was a punch to a kneecap during a clinch that you don't see every day.
We saw Ruenroeng push Casimero as he was trying to get up off the floor.
We saw Ruenroeng push Kim and the opponent through the ropes.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yep, that was another really good one.
Channeling in a Mills Lane.
Yep, there were constant takedowns, like almost like in soccer, where they try to trip the guy with the ball.
Right.
It was. I didn't even necessarily classify it as a boxing match. It was some kind of like a hybrid sport between boxing and WWE.
Ruenroeng he's an innovator with what they put on in Thailand. Let's talk about this fight though, because Ruenroeng started off really well. He was outboxing Casimero. I mean, when Ruenroeng settles into his rhythm, his footwork is unbelievable. The way he manages his distance, the way he jabs to the body and to the head. Ruenroeng has a lot of, I guess you would call it, traits that make him a really good flyweight. And doesn't have the accomplishment that Roman Gonzalez and Juan Francisco Estrada do. But if he moves down or moves up, Ruenroeng could easily be the number one guy in his division.
So I haven't seen too much of him, and I know that there was a lot of talk at the end of last year that he was in contention for, Fighter of the Year status. He looks a little unpolished, at least in that fight. Was it just that fight, or does he come off as
polished?
Kind of a
does not belong in any description of this fight.
Well, no, not that fight, but I'm trying to get a more overall sense of him as a fighter, because this fight I could easily see this as being like an exception, because it was really
I think
crazy.
He adapts quite well and puts on the fight that's necessary against the guy who's in front of him.
Okay.
So you see a few different sides. I mean, he's never had massive power or angles. He's just got those great fundamentals and a solid toolkit to do. He's like a grinder. He just comes in and grinds out his job. But I feel that you see different sides to him based on who he's with.
Gotcha. He appeared to have great timing too, being able to catch his opponent really well. But the guy was leaping in, but man, he was catching up with some great shots.
And the one thing about Ruenroeng is he got a late start in his career. He didn't turn pro till he was after 30, and to do that in the flyweight division is a little crazy because you're ancient in the flyweight division when you turn 30.
Yeah.
Like you're Hopkins in the flyweight division if you're Ruenroeng right now.
Right.
And he's been able to navigate flyweight so far and have a title, and he's beaten Kazuto Ioka. He outboxed Zhu Shiming, and now he's like really come into his own. And he just has a style that is, he knows that he doesn't have the traits that Gonzalez does. He doesn't have his power. He doesn't have a lot of what makes Gonzalez good. And he just adapts. He says, okay, well, if I don't have that, well, I'll do things other ways. And that's how we saw him take Casimero out the game with a lot of ruggedness, and
and then let him back in.
Well, I think Ruenroeng he has potential to be able to sell a fight with anybody on HBO. If this guy knew English, just imagine what he would be saying. I didn't care about this fight, to be honest. Completely honest, I was like, I watched it because it's a title fight, and I came away after the first 30 seconds of the first round just completely invested in this fight. For a while, I wanted to see Casimero knock Ruenroeng out. And at some point I said, you know what? I actually appreciate what Ruenroeng's doing here, and I'd like to see him win this fight because I want to see him in with even better opposition to see what he can pull out of his bag of tricks, which seemed to be unending.
What's the fight with Roman Gonzalez look like?
Ruenroeng pulls out a knife. The referee says, wait a second.
And
Let
then
me open that up for you.
Yeah,
because it's one of those pocket knives. I don't know. I think the obvious money is Gonzalez is a big favorite.
Yeah,
and Gonzalez is the favorite to stop him.
You don't think he could make it 12?
Well, the thing with Ruenroeng is I don't think he can make it 12, but I think. Wait, what I really want to say here is that it's not likely that he makes it 12, but he has this certain thing about him where you can't bet against him fully. He's never going to let you feel completely comfortable betting against him, whether it's for him or against him. He's just a wild card. But I'm 90% sure that Gonzalez beats him.
You have to be, but then if we were sat here and Ruenroeng had done it, you wouldn't be entirely surprised either if it ended up finding a way to win. He's
just wily like Hopkins. We all thought Hopkins had a real good shot at beating Kovalev. And Ruenroeng's the same thing, Wait a second. Have we been talking about this fight for like 5 minutes?
Well, I was going to say we opened up the podcast on a flyweight fight, and we've been on it for about 10. So
we lost 90% of our audience, I'm sure.
We can pretty much talk about whatever we want because nobody's listening anymore.
All right. Well, True Detective time. No, let's get you guys back. Tim Bradley versus Jesse Vargas. Let's recap that and talk about first. You have to start with the most obvious question, and that is, was Vargas going to pull it out in those last 10 seconds? Did it really matter that Pat Russell stopped it at 7 seconds left?
Hell no. Please. 34% KO ratio in Bradley's Thunderdome head. No way. Get out of here.
Never going to happen. Although it'll contribute to the end of the year's cringe awards. That will definitely be the biggest cringe moment. I can't foresee anything overdoing that.
That was, absolutely.
His winning celebration, you just feel for him like, no.
So the thing is, Bradley fought out on his feet for about, 8 entire rounds against Pervandikov? You know what I'm saying? Like, if he's out on his feet and he has to make it 10 seconds, he's fine. Like, the dude is fine. So I really hope I don't see any kind of criticism that way, saying, because, I mean, it's Tim Bradley, man.
I got to ask this.
What's he made of? Steel.
It's something that maybe a
Nobody
percentage of people out there think, and that is that how's Bradley going to fare against Golovkin? I'm kidding. Is there any chance that Russell jumped in to protect Bradley?
No.
Oh, hell no. No, he legitimately made a mistake. I think that was quite clear that
How old is he?
That's not a question we should be discussing, because the answer is he's older than Hopkins.
Like,
no, but I mean...
his hearing may be going.
That's what I said. I told as soon as that happened, I said to my dad, somebody should check his hearing aid.
Yeah, well, that was the point Simon was going for. He just legitimately made a mistake. The action was intense, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot going on, and he knew that he knows the round is almost over. He's refed many fights. He's got a feeling for how long 3 minutes is, so he knows it's coming up anyways. And by no way was that, like the A side being protected. It was just a mistake that happened to benefit the A side. That's all.
They always say, never attribute to malice what can easily be explained by incompetence, and that's what's happened here.
I don't think it was really incompetence, though. I think it was...
Well, it definitely was, because he misheard the clear sound, He
Is
wasn't competent enough to hear what the sound was. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a key skill a ref should have.
Well, true. He should be able to hear.
Hey, Angelo,
I don't think it was massively damaging.
What did you say,
I don't think it... Go on.
No, I just said go debate that. Yeah, that refs don't need to hear.
Yeah, I don't think it damaged the overall fight in any real meaningful way. It was what it was, but it certainly was incompetent.
Well, I don't think refs really need to hear in order to be referees. So how did Bradley look? This wasn't the Bradley we saw. Wait, actually, no, it was the Bradley we saw against Pacquiao, but it wasn't exactly the Bradley we saw against Chavez.
No, it was in my opinion, I'm a little bit more not pro Bradley, but I think he's a more skilled fighter than you guys give him credit for. I saw a fighter in there who definitely
let the fight slip away.
Not as much
by going to boxing,
but I think that could have been explained away as he had a clear points victory ahead of him. You know what I mean? So he did step off the gas, just like Ruenroeng did too. I don't think it was attributed.
Did that to piss Casimero off.
Let's not get too sidetracked.
Bradley's in his last couple has been in a position where he's gone toe to toe and got in the trenches with people he shouldn't have, and I wonder if this was like an evolution where he thought, you know what, I've got this in the bag. I don't have to prove how strong I am to anyone. I don't have to go toe to toe and show how powerful I am or I'm not. But just going to be sensible about it this time.
I did really expect more out of him in the last round. I'll be honest. I did expect, because that's like the Bradley that we're used to. So you're right, and it could have just been a very smart way to adjust to the fight. He was clearly winning, and he was ahead pretty wide on all the scorecards.
Yeah,
it backfired on him.
In what capacity?
Yeah, it didn't backfire.
Got staggered pretty badly in that last round. I don't think he should have changed anything.
Yeah, maybe. I don't necessarily agree, though. I think that him going as hard as he had been earlier would have maybe, exacerbated that.
And then maybe he doesn't have the stamina to, fight through it because he was going balls to the wall. I think he fought a fine fight. I think Bradley was just able to fight at a pace that was just higher. You know what I mean? It was just a higher paced fight than Vargas could have
you can definitely tell after 3.5 rounds, 4 rounds, that Vargas was no longer able to keep up with Bradley.
I loved it because this was the fight that you could show a new fan to boxing. Here's how we stratify levels of fighters, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really good point.
This is the fight that you could point to, and it's here's a guy, and here's a good kid in Vargas, undefeated, got a couple controversial wins. And then here's this other guy, Bradley, that's at this totally different level. And like now you could definitively see those levels.
Yeah. I mean, that was, for anybody out there, that was what it looks like when a world level fighter fights a guy who's just at a European level, or intercontinental, I guess we should say.
Intercontinental, you say, yeah, exactly. That's the difference. And a lot of it has to do with pace, right? Like not necessarily punches thrown per round, but movement, all of the kinetics that are involved as far as feinting. Yes, exactly.
All
feinting.
the strategy of a fight that is done.
And it's done at a faster pace. So we're not just talking about punches thrown. There's so much more to it. So when you just saw that, Bradley was just at that level. You know what I mean? And Vargas was nowhere near it.
Was it me? It was Vargas,
by the way.
Were Vargas' team trying to tell him to outwork? Like,
yes.
It sounded like they kept trying to tell him to outwork the guy with probably the best engine in the sport. Like, it just, I don't know, it was staggeringly dumb as a plan.
You're critiquing Morales now, so be careful.
Well, yeah, and I think that it's valid because Vargas righteously ignored him, but
it was a poor decision by his corner.
Well, yeah, but like you said, Vargas completely ignored it, or didn't feel like he was even capable of taking the suggestion. Because round after round, they told him
outside, and I think that's what the advice should have been: is hey, you can easily outbox this guy, catch him on the way in, feint him into committing, and make him pay every time. And Bradley would have eaten jabs and straight right hands. And he maybe does. Vargas maybe doesn't win the fight, but you know what? The cards would have been closer.
Probably, yeah. Had he definitely could have fought a smarter game plan. I think if I had to distill what you're saying, he totally could have fought a smarter game plan.
Well, so could have Bradley, but I mean,
I didn't think Bradley's game plan was that bad. No. I kind of like this aggressive Bradley.
No, absolutely, that's how he has to win. Like Bradley's small,
that's what I'm saying.
He's pretty. So his defense isn't great.
It isn't great, but it's not bad.
It's good. Like he's on the world level, so
it's like a B. It's like a B.
No, I think that his defense when he's in full defense mode is world class. But the problem is he doesn't have the ability to maintain that defense and get his own shots off.
Right.
So you've got a Mayweather who can world class defense, but he's also getting his own work done. Bradley suffers that when he's in full defense mode, he's just evading shots. He's not getting his own work off. He's not scoring points. And so when he does his own work, that defense goes out the window. And so that's why people say, his defense isn't great. His defense is fantastic when he chooses it to be. It's just unfortunate for him he can't defend and strike at the same time.
Right. He really has two transitions because when he is when he's on offense, he's ultra aggressive too, right? And then that's what leads him, to being able to be countered and being hit, and then that's what leads to thinking he has bad defense. But when he showed some fantastic defense in the Marquez fight, if you recall,
right? Yeah, that's what separates Bradley.
Upper body movement that he had in just moving, being able to move his head and just dip, dodge, and duck punches. Like he showed some fantastic defense.
With the aggression as well, it's a little bit chicken and egg because I don't believe that him being over aggressive is what leaves him exposed. I think he's over aggressive because he knows he's going to be exposed anyway. He might as well load up his shots and give him something to fear.
That's a good point.
That's a fair, that's a good assessment.
I think though that we saw that Bradley's problem. I think what really is at play here is that Bradley is either on offense or he's on defense. Yeah. He doesn't really transition well, and they don't, I don't even know what the word.
They don't meld. No, you're right. They don't meld together.
Is that a word, even? Does
that work? Yeah. They don't meld together. There's it's binary.
And that's what separates the other. Sergio Martinez was a master. Going from defense, he can do both at the same time.
He could be throwing a combination and being defensive.
Yeah.
While doing
So, and that's what separates Bradley and why Bradley's not one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. Now, he's really good. He's one of the top welterweights in the world, but he's definitely not one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world right now.
Yeah, I'd stand by that.
Well, we could have that argument another time.
You'll lose.
That's fine.
Shelve it, but I feel that you wouldn't do great. But yeah,
I might not do great, but I think I could probably be 7-5. You might guess 7.
I prefer 8-4.
We'll leave it at that.
Let's and I did score at Bradley 8-4.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Let me get my scorecard. Hang on.
So what did you guys think of Oscar Valdez versus Ruben Tamayo?
Do you want to wait? There's like an airplane passing.
Yeah, there's an airplane outside, so I'll start over again. I have to have all the windows open because we have no air conditioning.
I mean, A, get air conditioning, but B, don't worry, it's cool. Just wait till it passes.
It's 90 fucking degrees in here.
I couldn't even imagine. When you told me you didn't have air conditioning, I don't know.
Fuck that noise.
I can't even take it, man. I can't even take the thought of it.
We didn't.
Do you understand?
Moved to this house last October. And
okay,
so we didn't have to
it's been cool.
Yeah, and we have these type of windows where the wind blows, like it flows through the house really nicely. So if there's a breeze point, it's really nice.
Yeah.
In all the rooms and everything. But when
Best
it's
time
really
to buy
hot
an air
and no
conditioner?
wind,
October though.
Even if you just bought a little standalone unit.
Dude, even if you just bought bags of ice and a fan.
The one you can do if it's unbearably hot. What if you are poor? Have you got a fan?
We have several fans.
That's all.
I do my hillbilly engineering sometimes. So last summer we do.
Fans and ice packs.
You take a giant soda bottle, like a 2-3 litre soda bottle, fill it with water, put it in the freezer. When it's iced, just leave it in front of a fan and it will blow cold air at you.
Yep.
That's not a bad idea.
It's really not. So that's been Ghetto Rigged with Simon. Our next segment is going to be...
Well, we did say last week that we'll talk about summer stuff. So we'll have to throw that in at some point.
Yeah, how to get your low rider lower, Angelo.
No, yeah. Okay, no joke about that. Okay, our neighbors. This dude does have a lowrider.
Of course he does. You live in LA.
And he I can hear him coming down the street with the loud music, the loud muffler, and the doot 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 as he's lowering his car, driving down the street.
Because it's the air compression, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So on the undercard, we also had the HBO debut of Oscar Valdez, one of the top prospects in boxing and certainly the best prospect in all of Mexico. He took on Ruben Tamayo and overcame. I mean, it was a slip, really, but that was a knockdown, legit knockdown. Good call by the referee. What do you guys have to say about that fight?
Let me ask you, was that a good call by the referee? I agree, but I just want to get the explanation out there. Because he was definitely being tripped, but he was hit by a punch as he was being tripped. If you
go down and you get hit by a punch, that is a knockdown. It does not matter. Unless the referee hits you.
Even if the feet are tangled.
Yeah, so if your feet are tangled, if he trips you...
As long as there's a punch.
If he ties your shoelaces together and hits you with a punch while you're going down at any point, that is a knockdown.
Yep. All right.
I don't necessarily agree. I don't know if I would call that one a knockdown from last night, but I am British, so what do I know about refereeing?
So I guess how in the moment could you not call it a knockdown, Simon?
I don't think Simon was being serious.
No, not entirely. No, not entirely. But I don't subscribe fully to the if it's a punch and you go down, it's always a knockdown.
So I think that rule might be there to protect the referees because it's not easy to call these things in the heat of the moment. You know, they're looking at other things.
Yeah, so I mean, there's times though where someone will leap in, step on the foot by accident, be right up in their chest, and then land what's kind of a punch, kind of a push. You know, there's grey areas. So all I mean is that I wouldn't 100% subscribe to if there was a punch and there was a knockdown, it's a knockdown. End of. I think that there's a level of nuance.
I think I agree with you there, and the ruling does state though the rule does state that you know that's a knockdown. In an ideal world, I think the referee would be able to be overruled by somebody ringside who's actually looking at the replays, just so we can get the right call every time.
Well, that's an ideal world. I completely agree. But in the moment,
I wish we had the technology for that.
I know, it's really too far. I see all these other sports are just, everybody's incapable of doing it, so at least it's a level playing field, you know?
So now let's talk about drug testing.
Well, so...
No, we're talking about Valdez and how he looked.
Yes. So, okay, what do you guys, pound for pound, Valdez versus Verdejo? Go.
We're going right there, huh? So we know how we felt about his
Straight to the
fight.
jugular.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Do you want to? Okay, let's touch
And
we'll touch on the fight.
the only
first.
thing before, I wasn't as impressed with Valdez as I'd like to be for a blue chip prospect.
Oh no,
Looked a bit too vulnerable and a bit sloppy in places. So, without a doubt, great as a fighter. When I'm being critical, I think you have to bear it in the mind of the context that we're criticizing him as a potentially top prospect in the sport.
Or
And
rather
so,
a top pound-for-pound fighter at some point down the line in his career, right?
exactly. So we're identifying the pitfalls that may exist. And
Yeah, so-
all I'm saying is he looked a little bit hittable.
Yeah, this is not like we're criticizing Rocky Fielding.
Yeah, exactly.
We're criticizing one of the potential best fighters in all of boxing. And
Yeah.
it's tough, I think a lot of times we fall into this trap where it's the Mayweather trap where you think just because he got hit 4 times in a round means he lost it. We have so much attention on him that every hit that is landed registers way out of proportion. Now, in the Valdez fight, though, I think half of that is there, and then the other half is that sometimes I think at some point, it was in the 4th or 5th round, the crowd starts booing, and Valdez suddenly decides, well, I guess I'm not going to defend myself that much anymore. And he starts trying to exchange with Tamayo.
I think
Started
that's a dangerous
exchanging.
area to get in, is that he was trying to be crowd pleasing, and so he became hittable. There's very few fighters you believe that of, and even when Golovkin had it recently, it came with some dubious, but I
Well, I
don't
think he
always
was more willing
subscribe to that.
exchange. I think he was throwing more power punches, and when you do that, you got to take a risk. So I'm not saying that he was like, well, I'm going to let Tamayo hit me, but I think he was making the decisions that would leave him more exposed to getting hit. So certainly not. He was like, come on, Tamayo, give it to me.
No, that's what Golovkin. I felt like Golovkin was like, "Hey, give it to me." I felt like Valdez was, okay, I'm on HBO at the last minute on a big card. The crowd's booing me.
It was
I
like the
feel
last minute.
comfortable.
It was like 5th round.
What?
It was like the 5th round.
What? So did I make a point about the round?
Yeah, you said in the last minute.
No, he means that the fight being arranged and put on that card.
Card at the last minute. Like he was supposed to be on his own.
Yeah.
It was an out of the blue chance.
Never mind.
to
Everybody
show off.
forget what I just said.
Angelo just anytime he has the opportunity to prove me wrong, he just jumps on it.
This is my job. This is my job on the podcast, is to interrupt you guys.
All right, so thoroughly
I'm on mute.
derailed my train of thought there. That was a train full of ketchup, which is exactly what Ruben Tamayo needed to do in that fight. So, I know. I feel sick. I feel dirty just saying it. So, Valdez, here's the bottom line about him being hit too much. Every factor that I just mentioned, I think all of that played a role. He's like, I'm on HBO. Like, this is my chance. The crowd's booing me. They may not want to have me back. Case in point, Terrence Crawford. Like, I need to, you know what I mean? I need to do this. I need to do this right. And he was able to make the judgment, the decision to say, I'm going to turn it up because I want to have a long and illustrious career. And I want to have a fight. I want to keep fighting on HBO. I need to do what it takes. I need to show HBO that I'm willing to put on a good fight.
Fair enough.
I think he made that decision in that moment. Is it a smart decision when you're in with a guy like Tamayo? Yeah, it's probably okay. I'm not going to criticize you too much for it.
Fairly good risk analysis.
Exactly. If you're going to do it against whoever, then we got problems. So I think really just being on HBO and knowing that he was a last minute replacement played a role in that. And then he's all of a sudden the whole StubHub Center is booing you. You feel a little bit of pressure. I wouldn't say he cracked under the pressure, but he responded. He definitely responded to it. Whereas, like Angelo's saying, there's other fighters who just you boo me all day. They're not changing their style.
Rigondeaux.
There you go.
Laura.
Fair point.
There you go.
Well made.
I have
You've
one
convinced
other
me.
point
I'll
about
give him
this
a buy
fight.
on this one, and we'll see how he looks next time out.
Here's my point about this fight, though, and this is more towards the HBO commentators who I really feel like they didn't watch Valdez's fights before this one closely enough. I felt like they watched highlights of him because Valdez performed exactly how he always does. See, Valdez does not have a lot of power. His knockout ratio suggests that he does. He doesn't. All of his stoppages have come on stoppages where the corner throws a towel in, or it's just too much punishment for someone to take, and that's how he breaks him. He doesn't have any power, and Tamayo's a guy who was able to take it and was willing to take the risk to throw with him. Now, he got hit with some massive shots. If Walters lands those shots on you, you are asleep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when was the last time you saw somebody with that kind of accuracy not be able to get a guy out of there? Let me remind you, it was last week against Andre Ward versus Paul Smith, where Paul Smith showed up as almost a cruiserweight.
I thought it was Timothy Bradley versus Jesse Vargas.
Well,
Timothy
we
Bradley
hadn't seen that fight yet.
Okay, because he was landing some pretty accurate shots and not able to get Vargas out of there.
Kudos to Vargas for having that kind of chin, and also for being willing to exchange. Like, Vargas did hit him. Like, Bradley's face told the story. Vargas hit him pretty cleanly.
Yes.
So
back to Valdez. I want to make a last point
go for it.
on here. And then I just have one other question for you guys. I really liked him. I thought he performed stellar, and I think he showed me that he can keep that. I think he's not there yet, but I think he was at a level where, as long as he's able to keep learning, he's in a really, really good place for 15 or so fights. Right. So he's very high. I'm very high on him right now.
And you know what? This fight should not have been on HBO. I love Valdez, and I think he's great, but this fight should not have been on HBO. He's still developing. Verdejo should have got on HBO because he was actually fighting an undefeated guy. Now, granted, that guy never had a shot at beating him. I mean, the odds on that fight told you the whole story.
So really, you're gonna make it off a record? That's all you want? Is an O? Is that important to you?
What is it you mean when you say it shouldn't be on HBO?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, you just made the case that.
What does being on HBO even mean?
Well, it means a lot here in America.
It does, yeah.
It's like you're in the big leagues now.
Right.
That's the problem, isn't it? Is that you talked earlier about an intercontinental fighter fighting a world level fighter in the Bradley fight.
Right.
I think that there's no real distinction. HBO you're an HBO fighter and therefore you're HBO class. And HBO class can be anything from domestic to world.
Right.
And everyone just gets a pass.
HBO fighter.
Therefore world. Anyone on HBO's world level. And that mentality needs to stop. It undercard fight. It could be anything. You know, you don't see that really in the rest of the world of boxing viewership. It's just an HBO thing where if you're on HBO, you're obviously a fantastic world level fighter, and it should be fine for HBO to show domestic cards and club level cards and things like that, and make the audience aware of what's
creation. Though it's their creation.
Yeah, I gotta speak to that for a second because HBO has built a brand. Right,
mm-hmm.
It's not just boxing on HBO. Like they built a brand, which is and for how many years, guys? Being very American centric right now, just for a moment, has HBO been the leader in boxing? Right, they are the pinnacle. They're what fighters strive to be on. They're what you watched as a kid growing up. For a lot of people. HBO is the top of the pyramid per se. And that's the brand that they've built. That's what they've carved out for themselves. HBO doesn't want to be the network that shows the show extreme, right? The Showtime extreme kind of fights, right? Mm. That's not what they want. That doesn't fit the HBO boxing brand.
But I like Simon's point, though. I think Simon has a good point. And the way Sky does it, the way Box Nation does it, is how we should do it. We should be able to see. We should have been able to see every single one of Oscar Valdez's fights. I mean, he's a 2-time Olympian. We should have seen every single one of his fights. You had to tune in 3 hours early if you wanted to actually see that fight. But we should have had that opportunity to see him grow. Same with Verdejo. There's no reason why
boxing doesn't have the audience in the United States to support something like that.
Obviously,
so let's not.
I think that part of that is because people never get. People struggle to get emotionally invested, and you would get that emotional investment if you watch these fighters grow from their pro debut onward, because it tells that story. is what happened with Chavez. I think they televised all of his from day one because of the, media hype surrounding him. And, people got emotionally invested in his story.
Yeah,
and
that's
never
exactly
going to
right,
happen.
Simon.
It's never going to happen with people like Valdez if you just assume you set them up to fail, by not having them connect with their audience in that strong a way.
Which is why a lot of British fans get criticism for being so behind fighters who everybody says they're not that good. Like, Josh Warrington has a massive following, and people think that people are delusional because they're fans of his. And it's like, no. They're fans of his because they have emotional investment. They saw his very first fight, his very second fight, all the way up to when he challenged for the British featherweight title. You get to follow them. And this is why people love Lomachenko, and it's because we've been able to follow him in his first 4 fights.
Yeah, it's important. And if you speak to a Warrington fan, you often hear in the interviews when they speak to them, they say, do you think he can go all the way? And by all the way, they're referring to winning world titles and being at the top level of the division. And they always say, no, I don't think so. But who knows? Anything can happen. And, he's got big test after big test. And if he keeps passing them, world's his oyster. So, but it's possible to be a very big fan of someone and be emotionally invested in them, and also be objective enough to know what their limits are and what their shortcomings are. And you haven't been tricked by being there seems to be this sort of throwaway culture of where, well, I was tricked by this guy because I was his fan, but it turns out he's not the best. You can be a fan of someone who isn't the best. It's not a problem. Like, it's sad that there's a certain portion of sports fans that feel that they should be embarrassed if their guy loses. And you shouldn't be embarrassed. You should just, be commiserative of your guy. And there's no shame in supporting the guy that is going to have a hard job ahead of them.
But boxing's been relegated to such a niche interest in the United States that it's just not there. And the hometown connections just aren't there for a lot of these fighters. I'm not going to suggest that if they were televised, absolutely, that would be fantastic for the sport. It would be great. And just like the couple recent examples that you guys cited, as far as Lomachenko, Beterbiev,
that's a good one.
These, maybe they're trying it a little bit, right? Like, maybe it's moving in that direction. What's the gold medalist there in Asia? He's just slipping by his shimming.
Top Rank, though. Top Rank is leading the pack here in America, where they broadcast all of their undercard fights on their Top Rank TV website.
Yep.
So, and that's the start, though. It's just the start.
That's the start,
yeah.
Exactly. And and what we're seeing now is with PBC is kind of leveling the playing field of what it means to be like a fighter on network television, right? Because now we have network television involved. It changes HBO's role in boxing. And it really changes the whole landscape, because now we're having a lot more fighters and a lot more fights become super accessible to people, But this is a whole different topic. Valdez looked great. I want to know your guys' thoughts. Valdez versus Verdejo, pound for pound. Go.
Do you mean like in a fight, or who's better right now or in the future?
Yeah. No, just right now. Like,
I've got more confidence in Verdejo moving forward.
Okay.
It's tough because on one hand, I don't know what Verdejo's future is going to hold. I think he's got the style to take himself to the top. Here's the comparison right now. I think Verdejo can reach the highs that Valdez can't. But right now, if you were to look at looks like they're more of a sure thing, it's Valdez, but he won't.
That's what I think. Yeah,
he just has like he has all the signs and symptoms of a really, really, really good fighter. Whereas Verdejo reminds me of other fighters that looked good and flamed out, or just weren't able to get there. Right. They both have world title written all over them. Totally. They both have #1 in their division potential. Like, that's without question. And this isn't putting either fighter down too. As Simon just said, just because we're saying one is better than the other or one has a better shot, like, we are really saying these two have the potential to be #1 and #2 in boxing.
Exactly. And
Luke Campbell too. Luke needs to return because he deserves to be in this conversation. So we are like way off topic.
What about Carl Frampton?
Frampton's in a different generation, I guess we would say. Frampton's should be in the conversation with guys who are world title holders right now. Like if we're looking at generations, I think Frampton would be in like the Keith Thurman generation,
Oh, you think so? Okay.
the Terrence Crawford generation.
Really? Okay.
Verdejo and Valdez, they're still a few years
They're
away
younger.
from like their pinnacle.
Right.
Let's see. Let's talk quickly about Callum Smith, who belongs in their generation. He was
See you
in
guys
action.
later.
Smith is one of the top British prospects in the world. He fought Chris Rebrasse, who Rebrasse, I guess is how you say his name. He went 12 rounds with George Groves last year when George came back from his knockout loss to Carl Froch at Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 people. Let's see. Callum Smith won a decision. The one thing that I just want to say is this was not a shutout fight. One judge had it a shutout. It was not a shutout. I think Callum got properly tested here. And we saw that Callum, there are things that he's got to adjust and fix with his game plan. But we saw that he's able to pull out wins just because he's immensely talented. Simon, what did you see in this fight?
I think more of the same of what we come to expect in that goes to the body like an absolute pro. He is going to be, really impactful to the division. But the conversation here centres around sort of Groves and De Gale, but I think that in the wings, Callum Smith's there ready to jump out on them. And if at some point either of them take the fight against Smith, they could probably be in for a surprise.
I think Groves will lose to Smith if they fought tomorrow.
Yeah, no,
at some point
absolutely.
in the future. Groves, just style-wise, Callum Smith is Groves' nightmare. However, De Gale, that's a much more interesting fight. Like, De Gale certainly wouldn't be able to coast. I think De Gale can win off of his, De Gale's really talented. He wouldn't be able to just use his talent to beat Smith, though. But I saw some flaws in Smith, though, and maybe just a guy like Rebrasse is able to bring this out. I mean, he's incredibly tough. He took so many body shots, and the one that put him down in the 10th round, I think it was the 10th round, was like somebody hit him with a sledgehammer in the body.
So I just want to make sure I heard you right. You think Groves is a loss. Groves would lose.
Absolutely.
But you think De Gale could pull out a win, or do you think it's close, or does Smith need more fights to get at that De Gale level? Because I think De Gale's at a pretty high level.
I think Smith needs a few more fights. I think if they fought tomorrow, De Gale's a favorite.
He would be a favorite, and I think that a few more fights to get confidence would be a good thing. But if they did fight tomorrow, I think that he'd grow to the occasion and win against De Gale.
Get out of here.
I think Smith needs to get some confidence in his stamina. He fights like a guy who's scared to give it his all because he doesn't want to gas out at some point in the fight. And I also think that the other criticism I have of him is that he's got to use his length and his size. The dude is 6'4", I think. He's 6'4". You're fighting a super middleweight. Use that jab. Keep them on the outside, and then when they want to come inside, punish them for doing so with a body shot. I mean, but what do I know? He certainly didn't do that in the fight, though. And it looked like that would have helped.
How many rounds is he fighting?
12.
Yeah, full 12-rounders.
12-rounders? Okay.
Yeah.
He's gone 12 twice.
Yeah, and he scored his knockdown in the 10th, so it wasn't like he was lacking anything in the tank in the championship rounds.
That's why
a really
I said,
good sign.
He's scared of wasting his stamina for some reason.
Well, I mean, obviously he was able to manage it to a degree that was very effective.
Right. I think there's a next level, though, where it seems like during the middle rounds, he kind of he gets very dull, and he might still win those rounds, but they're not dominant rounds. And we saw that with the Sejloka fight, too, where he just the middle rounds seem like they lack something. Let's talk about a few threads from Reddit Boxing that were pretty interesting this week. We're not going to preview much for next week because there's nothing really.
There's not a lot on. It's a bit of a sleepy weekend coming up.
Yeah, and it is the holiday weekend here in America. So, and we're still going to release a podcast though. So don't think you're going to not have a podcast to listen to next week. So one of the threads that I thought was interesting, we saw this today. Why do you think the heavyweight division is so weak in comparison to previous heavyweight eras? And this was posted by TP since 1993, or since 93, which I think is like toilet paper since 93. I don't know.
I have a quick answer.
Go for it.
I mean, I don't know how much time we want to spend on the topic. I think it's just they were just plainly better.
What?
Simon gets it.
He's baiting for the response.
Yeah.
Simon,
But,
I don't think it's fair to say that the heavyweight division was weak now in comparison to any other era. I think, first of all, how do you know?
Well,
like, really,
I'll tell you how I know.
How do you know that Muhammad Ali would beat Vladimir Klitschko? Muhammad Ali was like, what, 120 pounds soaking wet?
Wilder dominates all of them, I think, is the real thing that we need to bring up. That's the real elephant.
Shush your face. Come on. So
Okay.
where we're sat today is that we've got all of the premier talent is from, Europe and the UK, UK being in Europe. So, yeah, Europe is dominating the heavyweight division at the minute.
You just want to make sure you get the UK in there. It's okay. We understand.
Yeah, I think that's a terminology thing. We often refer to Europe because we're not part of the mainland. We'll often refer to Europe as a thing that's separate to us. But of course, we constitute part of Europe. But I think that while there's no American in prominence, there's lots of salty fans that are like, the division must be terrible. It's awful. We weren't even playing anyway. And you see all of these excuses that come out, like we weren't even trying. We were too busy playing basketball.
Football.
We were too busy playing football to even bother trying. It's like, get out of here with that. Can you imagine if Japanese people showed up to the conversation and said, there's no Japanese heavyweights because they're all busy doing sumo wrestling. Shut up, get out of here. It's a silly thing to add to the conversation. It's just bitter. And at the minute, there are top people that are better than any of the generations before us. People like Povetkin would stomp through, I'd say even the Mike Tysons of the past. There's big talent going on, and the dismissiveness comes from a reluctance to admit that Vlad is that good, and if he's that good, the division must be terrible, because the unpleasant alternative to that is that the best heavyweight the world's ever seen is some Ukrainian dude that lost until he found Manny Stewart.
So why is that? But why? So why are people so? Where's the opposition, Simon? Help me figure it out. I don't understand the opposition to that.
Well,
why are people so oppositional? But people love a comeback story. People love an underdog. People thrive off that.
I think personally,
see what I'm getting at?
It's that Vlad's based out of Germany for a lot of his fights.
He's the right color.
Been fighting in a country at a time where the big heavyweight fights have happened for you guys. It'd be 2, 3 in the afternoon, and because it's not happening Saturday night prime time, HBO, Showtime, whatever, as a big extravaganza, then it must be worthless. And it's that I think probably.
An afterthought.
But if you're a fan of boxing, you're showing up to watch that fight at 2 in the afternoon.
But if you're a fan of boxing like that, you know the truth.
You would know that Vladimir is mustard. He's excellent, strong fighter in that category. And the problem is that people relegate everyone that he beats to just junk because, he didn't look that good against Vlad, so he must have been junk all along. So all of these people like Povetkin, Pulev, soon to be Tyson Fury, they're all going to be just, they're like, they're nobodies because they couldn't. They're really good, and any of them would beat a lot of legendary fighters that we talk about from what we'd refer to as the glory era. I mean, do you not think it's a bit suspect that every generation we refer to as a golden era of heavyweight always by coincidence happens to have been dominated by an American, and that any time when that's not the case, they were the dark ages? So the things that I've seen that were laughable from the thread that we're referencing, someone said that Tyson was one of the best heavyweights of all time.
Well, that's just ridiculous.
He beat some legends like Razor Ruddock. And then someone talked about Povetkin, and someone said, Povetkin would be an absolute joke compared to the legend of Razor Ruddock. And it's this is just the most absurd opinion, because Ruddock had no credible win of any,
of note, yeah.
No,
if you don't live in America, you probably view Razor Ruddock as some sort of sad, absurd figure that, I don't know why he has this sort of legendary status within the US, but, there's there's always criticisms to people's oppositional quality, and there always will be. But the heavyweight era we're in right now is actually pretty good. It's pretty strong compared to previous eras. So you've got the top guy, and then underneath the top guy, there is a good between 5 and 10 people that you couldn't confidently rank one way or the other, which is unusual. So, I mean, if you threw people like Pulev, Povetkin, I'm going to do it, Wilder was thrown into that mix out of charity, but Fury, Manny Char, there's a lot of people out there that are good competitive fighters.
And then you have Joshua and Parker coming up.
Oh, great people in the wings coming up as well. You know, it's actually a really healthy time for the heavyweight division.
The heavyweight division is no different from welterweight right now.
It's sad people don't recognise it. It is probably about as deep as welter, which is incredible when you consider all of the influx that welter's gained from the neighbouring weights who've been chasing a lucrative payday there. So, like, welter's kind of inflated at the minute. And I do truly believe that heavy is about as deep a division as welter right now.
I think that's a little strong of an opinion. But I could see where you're coming at it from.
Yeah,
I totally
shouldn't think that it's a million miles off.
Absolutely not. No, but I think it would be on the far side of the spectrum. You know, if I'm trying to cut down the middle, you know.
If you said welter is probably a bit deeper than heavy, I could take that. But they're not. Yeah. They're not leagues apart.
No, they're not. And I think, so I guess here's another thing to think about. What are we talking about by what makes a great division? A great division, like a great fight is Gaddy Ward. That's a great fight. That doesn't mean they're the greatest fighters. You know what I mean? So, like, we have a great heavyweight division in the sense of there are a ton of competitive matchups available to be made right now. Yeah. Right? Like, is that what people don't understand?
I think that, like, really people are looking for a shortcut to discredit Vlad.
Yeah. And it's a lack of, it's probably just a lack of following that European scene has got to be a lot to do with it. And HBO has done a disservice by not really picking up a lot of those fights either. You know,
like Yeah, well, yeah, of course. And if you don't follow the division, that's, you know, there's lots of people that don't follow minimum weight, but you don't often see those people step up and say minimum weight's a junk division with no talent. They just say, I don't really watch it because, and sadly, people do occasionally say that it's a junk division and no talent, and they're just ridiculously ignorant. But
I think some of it is nostalgia too, Simon. Like,
of course.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of it is nostalgia. You got a lot of people who they grew up watching these heavyweights when the heavyweight champion of the world was the baddest man on the planet. You know what I mean? And so it was just a different time, and I think to comparatively, we don't live in that same time period, but that doesn't by any means make the division weak. You know what I mean? But
yeah, exactly.
Culturally, we're in a different place with the heavyweight division as a culture in America.
All right, so let's talk about another topic. What boxer has the best resume as a loser? So meaning that who's lost to the best people throughout their careers? And this is posted by a user risk_neutral. I said Manny Pacquiao. You lost to Floyd Mayweather, Timothy Bradley, Juan Manuel Marquez, Eric Morales. I mean, those four, take out Bradley, all Hall of Famers. Put Bradley back in, all world champions with multi-division champions. Who do you guys think?
We've got Ricky Burns in there.
Let's see who has Burns lost to?
Crawford.
Omar Figueroa.
Figueroa. But that was
someone said Darnell Boone, which I thought was really cool.
Well, Darnell Boone is but
he doesn't really count, because this is his job.
Right. Exactly. He's not.
Ricky Hatton?
I mean, Hatton's just got Mayweather and Pacquiao. I mean, that's not bad.
This is a very tough question.
De La Hoya is a good one too because he's lost to Mayweather and Pacquiao.
Oh, that's got to be the answer, surely.
Bernard Hopkins and Trinidad and Mosley and Felix Sturm. Oh wait, no, he didn't lose to Felix Sturm.
Yeah. No, I think you found it there. I think that is the perfect answer, De La Hoya.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a cool question.
That's a really good question that makes you think. Yeah.
That was a good one. Do this again.
Yep.
All right, so let's run through some quick hits and then get out of here. Did Bradley make a case for a Mayweather fight in September?
What do you think, Simon?
I think so, yeah. I think that if we're talking about being a definitive welterweight champion, which Mayweather clearly is, Bradley's been extremely relevant to the welterweight discussion for the last 4 or 5 years. Why not? Why not?
You could go back through my Reddit, history, and I've championed Bradley for a Mayweather fight for a very long time.
It depends what we look for, doesn't it? Because if you say we're looking for someone that's going to give Mayweather the hardest challenge, then probably Bradley doesn't feature in that discussion. But if we talk about should Mayweather face someone he hasn't fought before,
deserving,
and is the most relevant to welterweight, you want to talk about Amir Khan. He's not that relevant to welterweight. He's done some stuff there, but not really relevant to welter.
Wait a second. He beat Chris Algieri.
So my thoughts on Bradley, I'll come at it twofold, just like you did, is because I actually do think he's got a case that could make to be competitive with Mayweather.
Because he got outboxed by Pacquiao. Is that what you're basing this on?
Well, I'm pretty sure you understand the transitive property, right? So that's what you're throwing at me right now.
Mayweather is a much better boxer than Pacquiao, but I see your point.
Styles make fights, man. And all I'm saying is that I think Bradley's got one hell of a. I don't think he's gonna win. Don't get me wrong, but I think I can't point to another welterweight who I think would give Mayweather a harder fight right now. Maybe Kell Brook, but maybe not. I don't. I wouldn't be. I personally wouldn't say that, but I wouldn't be upset if somebody did. I don't think there's another welterweight out there. So from the relevance standpoint, absolutely, Simon. But even from a competitive level, I think Bradley's there.
Well, he'd certainly try much harder than Pacquiao. I think we can
try. He'd try much harder than any of Mayweather's recent opponents. I
thought Ortiz tried pretty hard.
He
even headbutted him.
I thought Guerrero really gave it his all, but he did not show up for a paycheck.
So Andre Ward gave Paul Smith his money back for when he failed to make weight. Paul Smith, that is. But what do you guys think of that move?
I think it's a, how, like you don't punch somebody when you're down. I think that's basically like the equivalent of hitting somebody when they're down.
Yeah, he was like, you know what?
He's like,
this is probably the last big relevant payday you'll ever have. I'm not going to rob you of some of it.
Right. He's like, I beat your ass so bad. I'm so rich.
I'm so sorry.
I thought it was, but honestly, we're talking about Andre, son of God, Ward here. It really could have just been a charitable act. You know what I mean?
Maybe Andre Ward really is a good guy.
Right. It could have just been a good deed. And I really, if I wanted to take joking aside, it was probably just a good deed because he's a good dude,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's easy to make fun of it, but
he's been messed around by promoters and had his own share of disagreements financially and commercially on that side of boxing. He's probably quite a big proponent of the boxers deserve the lion's share of the money, and that everyone else, all the tangential people, the managers, the promoters, everyone like that is a leech to an extent in his mind. Right. And he just wants to give the guy who was doing the fighting the money.
His fair share, what Ward felt. Here's what it is. Oh man, this just makes so much sense now. That money is what Ward felt Smith was entitled to because that's what they signed the contract for. And what was Ward's contract disputes with his promoter about? Getting what Ward felt he was entitled to. You know what I mean? So Ward saw like a little karmic way for him to dole out a little bit of justice, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when, he deserved that money. Smith did not come in at that weight that he said he was
absolutely. But this was him showing that ethically he's not a hypocrite. He stands by his principles that what you're due is what you're due, and he'd be a hypocrite to deny someone of it.
Exactly.
So Ward is a good dude.
I think we broke that down better than anybody else.
So Ward is a good dude.
Please subscribe on iTunes and rate us.
And let's talk about not such a good dude in Devin Alexander, who did not have some did not have nice things to say about the Supreme Court's decision to approve gay marriage across all the states in the United States.
So here's the bottom line.
What was that tweet he sent out?
Yeah, so here's the bottom line.
I saw that. I think Liam Smith retweeted it, didn't he?
Jason, why aren't you laughing?
No, because I don't get it.
Simon.
Obviously. That would be the reason, right?
Liam Smith is of the Fighting Smith brothers, like Callum's brother and things like that. And he was arrested a while back for Paul Smith's brother. Yeah, Liam Smith was arrested recently for, like, or not that recent anymore, but for going to a gay nightclub and just, wailing on gay people.
Oh, man.
So I was joking that he would retweet such a tweet because he is a rampant homophobe.
Yeah, that's horrible. Okay.
And the tweet no longer exists because Devin Alexander deleted it.
Did PBC take it down? Oh,
you have
Devin.
To,
oh,
you have
right.
To think Devin. With all the
someone
hate
made
that
a
he
phone
got,
call,
though,
didn't they?
somebody convinced him to take it down, or PBC stepped in and said, "Hey." And what the tweet actually said was, only a vagina, when it is stretched, can tighten back up. But when your anus is stretched out, you are destroyed. Shows how unnatural it is.
So thanks for that rendition.
Yep. I mean, it paints a nice picture.
So dramatic as well. You are destroyed. Like,
yeah.
You're not destroyed.
Oh.
I mean, let's not even get into that because it's obvious how stupid that is.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is Orlando Cruz is not a shot fighter. You know what I mean?
Oh, so talk about getting destroyed, right? Just stepping right over that one. Golovkin isn't going to get David Lemieux. They said they want to go with
I'm sorry. I think
defense.
we need to criticize him a little more because in today's day and age, like, that is such a fucked up thing to say. I think it's okay that we go ahead and give it maybe just 30 or 40 more seconds of what the fuck, and I hope I don't have to watch him box again.
Everyone's jubilant and happy because this momentous and important thing's happened. And you're just there being bitter, just throwing some hate on, if you don't like gay marriage, don't get gay married. Like, he's just there hating on what other people are doing. Forget that and forget him. Yeah,
it's just, you want to have, I'm totally for people, you want to feel however you feel about anything, that's fine. But you're a public figure. You know what I mean? You're representing premier boxing champions to a degree. That's not the type of brand that boxing needs.
No.
We need Mayweather.
It's a shame,
you know what I mean? We need Mayweather.
When Kelly Maloney came out in the UK with the gender reassignment and whatnot, people were largely supportive, and I felt really good as a boxing fan that
that's awesome.
So many boxers were coming out to say, like, good on her, she's doing what she needs to do, and I hope everything works out fine. Everyone was very supportive, and you feel good as a boxing fan to be a part of that. And I don't know, when something like that happens and someone who represents boxing comes out and says something so backward, so antiquated and hateful, it just makes you feel a bit saddened.
It really does.
All right, so let's get back on track somehow. Golovkin is most likely not going to get David Lemieux as he wants. He's not going to get Cotto. He's not going to get Canelo. He's not going to get Peter Cullen or Billy Joe Saunders or Andy Lee. What the heck is Golovkin going to do now?
Can I just ask a quick question? What happened with Lemieux?
They want a voluntary defense.
Okay. All right.
So I enjoy that belt a little.
A lot of people get criticism in this situation, but then other people get passes, and I think we should extend that pass to Lemieux and be like, you've earned your belt.
Yeah.
You got, take your mandatory, your voluntary. Yeah. People do that. That happens.
That's what I just said. Yeah, the very standard. Yeah. I don't think you should get any criticism for it. Preferably he does it in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, just like Wilder. Anyways, no, that's so standard in boxing. What are you going to do? What's Golovkin going to do? He's going to do what he keeps doing. He's going to chug away. He's going to fight somebody who's ranked in the, 20 to 15, rankings. Maybe he'll bring somebody down from, super middle. What I would even love to see, and I know
happening. Why don't I drain myself out to fight Golovkin?
I am.
Have you heard of Curtis Stevens? So yeah, okay,
Curtis Stevens is like 5'6".
I've got a theory on this as well.
Yeah, but I think bottom line is it happened. So.
I think that within the Golovkin story, you've got a very solid narrative that Cotto's ducking him and that Canelo's ducking him, and eventually, he might get one of those fights. But for now, he's fighting the best that he's got on offer, right? That's a fairly solid view that a lot of people hold.
Right,
yeah, is that
accurate?
It's not too controversial, right? Okay, so HBO know this, and they're like, you know what? We can pay this guy relative peanuts to fight relative nobodies,
right,
and everyone will eat it up, everyone will watch it, and nobody's going to criticize us because they're going to put all the blame on Cotto. And so we can continue. We can do this like ad nauseum. You could do this like 4 or 5 times a year. He could fight someone from the position 20 to 30.
He's going to fight somebody from the 15 to 20 range.
You're right. And I think that'll continue for a long time because no one's going to criticize anyone except Cotto. It's brilliant. And you can say, Golovkin, we know you're this big draw and you're getting all these viewers in, but you're not taking that competitive fights. It's not your fault, but that's why we're not going to pay you much more.
Well, they pay him so little, but he needs a Murray every once in a while. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. He needs like a Martin Murray level, once every 3 fights to keep people interested. Because if he sticks with the Rubios, I think that will eventually backfire. Because I know that the narrative is pretty set in stone. Cotto's ducking, I'm with you there. But if we're 18 months from now and he still hasn't gotten that fight, meaning a big fight, I gotta think fans are gonna start to get a little tired.
Well, maybe, but you can't fabricate a Murray out of nowhere. They have to exist.
Well, let's see. Of course. This is who he's got left. This is who he's got left who you can actually sell as like not this really irresponsible fight where Golovkin is about to murder somebody. Jorge Highland from Argentina.
Yep.
Chris Eubank Jr. And I'm just going down the box rec rankings.
Yes.
Michel Soro, who just won last week. Dominic Wade's actually out of the picture. Arif Magomedov, 22-year-old undefeated fighter out of Russia, but has done nothing.
Where's Billy Joe Saunders in this?
Billy Joe Saunders has Andy
How'd you
Lee.
put Eubank in and not Saunders?
Because
I know, right?
They're already set to fight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you're talking? I thought you were just doing like a bigger picture. Okay, you're just doing available fighters.
Billy Joe Saunders is out there. He's available eventually. Akio Shibata, that's not going to happen. This guy has way too many losses to sell a fight with Golovkin.
Yes.
Ryota Murata, that's it. And Top Rank is, unless they're crazy and don't really see a future in Murata, they're not going to put up Murata for Golovkin.
No. Right.
I don't think Bob
There's options to sustain him, though. He can do a couple of people that are weak, and then a Chris Eubank Jr., a couple of people that are weak, then a Billy Joe Saunders. There is a lot of life in the Golovkin train, and all the time that they act like they want Cotto, they're absolutely impervious to any criticism.
So that, yeah. I mean, the thing is, he's got to, at least for me personally, he's got to get in there with somebody every 3rd fight, say. Like, that's pretty much my thought on it, because I get the whole ducking thing. But, because you just want to see him tested. And
at his rate, he's going to be old by the time he fights
exactly.
This is what challenge.
This is a thread that I made on Reddit a while ago that was kind of unpopular. And it was, due to Golovkin's age, his constant fighting schedule, and his long amateur background, I don't know how long his shelf life is going to be. He may take a pretty drastic turn. That kind of comes out of nowhere would be my concern, because the guy's got a lot. He's not taking damage in his fights, but that's not where the damage is coming from. It's coming from the constant training camps, the sparring, the year-round training camps. But we don't need to go down that road.
That's not so much what bothers me, but like his style doesn't lend itself to aging unless he can find his way to turn into like a more, the sort of styles that age well, where you've got like counter-punchery defensive style fighters. Unless he can get into that wheelhouse, his power is going to dissipate at some point.
But that's not the fighter people pay to see when they come to see Golovkin.
Very true. Yeah.
So he's kind of like in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
As far as his future goes, right now.
But the bottom line is, how much would you love it if he started a campaign at 168?
I'm all in. Simon really doesn't care, I guess, by his silence.
Well,
Well,
what did
I
you
was just
say?
trying to, in my head, I was trying to figure out what that looks like, because I think that at
Let's look.
168, you've got Froch,
Well,
and everyone Froch has beaten, and Andre Ward, who might not
but
even
so
stick
what?
around for that.
You haven't seen, but you haven't seen Golovkin in with any of those guys yet that
So,
Froch has beaten or
say
that
though,
Ward has beaten.
say though that his power dissipates at 168, like it has done for a couple of other fighters. He could then look very human against people like Abraham, and suddenly people would say Golovkin was a hype job all along, knew it. It could be a really risky and potentially bad move.
I'll tell you why I don't think it's as risky. Is because his whole amateur career was at that amateur middleweight
Mhm.
division, which is like 165.3 pounds or something. So it's only like 3 pounds away from what we would consider super middle. And he's also one of these fighters that doesn't balloon up in weight. So I think he would maybe even come in, a little under, but still
Yeah.
be able to compete with these guys.
So you bet the farm
bigger
on
guys.
him maintaining his power at that level.
I really do, only
Fair
because
enough.
he fought so much of his career. He fought more fights at 165 than he's fought at 160.
That's true. Yeah.
If we take, obviously amateur into consideration. But now we're talking fights with, Groves, DeGale, Ward potentially. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Callum Smith. These aren't.
Drills. I don't
there's
care.
a lot to be excited about for sure. But
I just think there's so much more to be excited about than. But otherwise, you get the champion that remain. I also love the idea of the champion that stays in his division and remains dominant, fights all the up and comers.
yeah, this is my yard. Get out. Yeah.
That works. I like that, but just personally as a fan, I'm kind of ready to see him move up. I would really like to see him move up, but that's just kind of how I've been feeling lately about it.
So last one, we saw this week Brian Vera get knocked out on a really bad move by Ian John Lewis, and all of a sudden the boxing public at large is yelling like, "Oh, British referees so incompetent! They don't know what they're doing. They're the worst." All this stuff, and when we see bad refereeing in other countries, it's just bad refereeing. It happens sometimes. What do you guys think about the bias that people seem to have with refereeing in Britain versus around the world?
Well, I'll have a clear bias on this because of my nationality. So, do you want to go first, Jason? Then I'll respond.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll jump in. I think a lot of the bias has to do with just
Nationality is 1/8 Britain.
no, it's not. Stop it. I think a lot of it actually has to do with what's the word that I'm searching here for?
Confirmation bias?
Not necessarily. Well, yeah, that's a good one. But ratio. Just there's so many more fights that take place in Britain. There's more chances for bad things to happen. You know what I mean? So I think that explains some of it. But when you're talking about when a ref actually does something that's fine, but then American fans shout it out as, it's a poor, UK ref, that's confirmation bias, because I think they overheard somebody say that, or they read it somewhere and they've really latched.
Saw it in the one British fight that they saw that was in Britain with all British officials. Like, say if you saw Froch Groves.
Yeah, well,
The
and
first
here's the
one,
problem.
yeah.
It wasn't even the worst, but sure, it was forced down
It was the
everybody's
most popular
throat.
one, I think.
It was right. It's absolutely the most popular one, but it was forced down to everybody's throat as this egregious thing when it really wasn't. And then therefore, now you have a narrative.
Yeah,
I think-
absolutely. It builds to that.
Simon, did you want to defend it?
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys have. I thought I might have more of a fight on my hands, but yeah, it's one of those ones where you see it from other places and other countries, and it's just that's a one-off example of a bad ref. Boo, you're a bad ref. And when it's anything to do with the British ref, it's endemic even of all British refs being like that, because and the times no one shouts out when there's a good ref. Like no one shouts out when there's a good scorecard. So obviously all people hear is that this ref was bad, and it adds to their confirmation bias so that they think that it's a bad thing. Well, obviously, as Jace was saying, there's a lot of opportunity to get stuff wrong in the UK just because of the scope and scale of boxing here, where we will have televised cards that are club level fights all the way up to world level fights. There's a lot of televised boxing here where there's a lot of referees being used every weekend. There's just a lot of opportunity.
They're pulling refs out of the crowd, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's there's a lot of scope to get it right, and it's a difficult job. They don't have the benefit of things like editing and hindsight. We have that advantage. They've got lots to get wrong. There was the issue with hearing the 10-second warning and not knowing. They ended up cutting off early, and it can happen very realistically for a ref. We're within the sphere of like talking and podcasting and things.